Hey everybody, I'm Z Garcia, and today I'm taking a look at a roll and write game called Penny Papers Adventures Skull Island. Skull Island is part of a series of 3 games so far, all based on this character Penny Papers, and it is ranked as the center one of the 3, meaning in game length, it's supposed to be between the other 2. In complexity, it's supposed to be between the other 2. In it, you are going to be finding treasure on Skull Island by writing in numbers, drawing in little ships, and then finding where those things intersect so you can dig up treasure if you would. So, I'm going to put the other 2 here aside. I'll be doing reviews for those 2 as well. Go check them out. But let's focus on this one for right now. Let me give you an overview. We'll come on back after that, and I'll tell you what I think of it and kind of where it falls for me in comparison to the other 2. To start the game, every player is going to be given one of these sheets, something to write with, and then we have all 3 dice here that the players are going to share. And every round you are going to roll all 3 dice and the players are going to write something on their board looking for treasure. The way you score treasure is by having, as it shows you down here as a reminder in the bottom corner, by having the same number 4 times intersect somewhere on the map. So for example, 9, 9, 9, and 9 down here means that this line and this line intersect there, and that would get me 9 victory points. The intersections can be on the mountains, but a number cannot be written on the mountains. And so we are going to every round roll the dice, and everybody is going to write a number on their sheet, starting somewhere on the coast of the island, and every subsequent number must be adjacent to something already in there. And adjacency in this game is diagonal as well. So let's say I roll, and I get that. That was not much of a roll. I faked that, of course, but let's say this is what I get. So I could write a 3, a 4, a 5, a 7, a 9, or a 12, anywhere I want to. And so let's say I take the 5 here, and I'm going to put that 5 right here. And then everyone writes something down somewhere on their island, and then we roll again. So now I could write a 4, a 3, or a 7 next to this 5 here, meaning there, or there. They're all adjacent to that 5. However, I got a ship. So when you roll a ship, you may also put a ship somewhere in the water, and that ship is going to help you find treasure by allowing you to use the ship as a replacement for a number. And so if I have a 5 here, and I put a ship up here, that could count as a cross-section of 5s to find treasure later on. Note that you can have at most 1 ship in each coordinate. You can have 1 ship that goes up and down, 1 ship that goes side to side, meaning I cannot do 5 and 5 and then ship and ship. It has to be one of those 2 must be a 5, an actual number 5. So since I rolled a ship, I'm going to go ahead and put that ship up here. And the ship is also going to allow me to put a number adjacent to that. I landed in a new place on the island, so I can start from next to that as well. And when I do that, I do not write a number down. I had the choice of doing one or the other. Okay, so I've got that, and I get another 5 if I'd like to. I could do that. However, that 5 must be adjacent to something already in there, so I could put it there, or I could put it adjacent to this 5 here. I'm going to go ahead and put the 5 there, and hope, since I'm looking up and down here, that counts as 5s, and I have this one there. If I have a 5 anywhere over here, or a ship, then I could find some treasure between them. So let's say I roll that. If I get penny papers here, I can write any number I want to between 5 and 15, still adjacent to something else. And then lastly, so I could do whatever I want to with her. I could write whatever number I want. The last face on the dice here is the skull. When you roll a skull, you're going to take your sheet of paper, throw it into the middle of the table. You take someone else's, and you are going to put a skull somewhere on the island. That is going to then also mark off that you put a skull in there. So let's say, for example, this is what happened. By the way, when that comes up, the other 2 dice are completely ignored. So let's say my opponent, someone at the table, is going to take this skull here. They're going to put it there, and they are going to put a skull right there and mark off that one of them has been written into the board. Those are going to penalize me at the end of the game, and the number of points I lose is equal to the lowest number adjacent to that skull. However, the 9s, as it shows you here on the side, will neutralize those threats, and instead of losing those victory points, you would gain them. So you would earn the number of victory points equal to the lowest number around that skull. And so that would be the next roll. I would go ahead and roll again. Let's say, ooh, another skull. Okay, so the players might take that and put a skull right there. Someone else will do this to me. There we go. And this continues like this until you actually start finding some things. So let's say later on, I am able to write a 5 right there. And now I've got 5s up and down, 5s side to side. Wherever they intersect, you put a circle in that spot. Does not matter if it's filled or empty. Does not matter if it's on a mountain. And then I write down here the number of victory points I would get for that treasure. Since it's 5s that intersect, that's 5 victory points. You are going to continue playing until someone has found 5 pieces of treasure, and then you figure out what the total is for those. You add them up together, and then you figure out if you gain or lose points from the skulls on your island. You figure out those points, you add them together to figure out what your total is. So a sheet that's complete might look something like that. In this case, this is a solitaire game I played. I was able to find 5 pieces of treasure, so the island was not completely filled. And I gained a 5 and a 7 from skulls, and I lost 6 victory points. The reason I did that is because this skull here is next to a 9. I neutralized it. This one here was also next to that 9, neutralized it. And this one right here was not next to a 9, so I lost 6 victory points. That's what it's adjacent to, the lowest thing it's adjacent to. And that's basically all there is to it. So you are filling this in, trying to get the highest score you can. These sheets are also, by the way, double-sided with a slightly different configuration, but you do want to make sure that everyone is playing with the same side of the map. And that's all there is to it. So let's go back up top. Let me tell you what I think of the game. All right, so there it is. Let's talk about it. I'm going to start with thematic ties. Is it original? Is it well implemented? I do like the theme in this one, and I would say of all 3 themes across the line here, this one has the most interesting theme and the best implemented theme. I like the idea of finding treasure by using coordinates, you know. I think that's thematic. I like the idea of having the ships on the coast only, and they can help you discover the island. I like the idea of exploring only adjacent to where you've been, but if you land a new ship, you can deploy from that ship. That all makes sense thematically. So thumbs up there. The aesthetics, component quality, artwork, things like that. The game does not include pencils or pens, so you need to provide those yourself, but the dice are very nice, and the pad of papers that they give you do look good. They're vibrant and they work well. They're easy to write on, all of that stuff. So they're good. Replayability, scale. Does it scale well? Is it are there new things to discover from game to game? As far as the new things to discover, I'm not so sure, but the game, I would say, certainly scales well. They say 1 through 100 players. Doesn't really matter how many people you play with, except for when you have to take a sheet and throw it into the center and everybody, you know, writes the skull on there and then gives it back to you. That can certainly get unwieldy and just ultimately annoying, really, if you are playing with a lot of players. But other than that, it doesn't really matter. So yes, it scales well. And the replayability, I would say, is okay. The game does not have a ton of new discoveries to make, as do the other ones. Really, I don't think any of them do. But the scalability and sort of the interest, I think, will mostly be there. And it's certainly easier once you've done it once to come back to this one. This one's a little hard to sort of wrap your head around, this idea of, you know, the line and column intersecting. The game length, is it interesting the whole time? Does it become repetitive? It's about 20 minutes or so, especially what they say on the box, and I think that's about right. I would say this is interesting, certainly, but once you start getting cornered with your numbers, it becomes a little bit headier and a little bit thinky. Not necessarily in a good way either. It's a little tricky to manipulate the board and the numbers to do for you what you want it to do. So that can be a little problematic. And it does feel like the space you are given is a little too tight to really be able to find all the cross coordinates that you are hoping to find. I think of the 3 games, I've noticed the most frustration with this one. With people becoming frustrated because they cannot get that final number, or they realize, oh yeah, I would need another 11 over here, but there's no room on that side. I can't actually write an 11 there because I've run out of spaces. That sort of thing. Ease of play. Is the game fiddly? Are there any extraneous rules? Is it easy to teach? That sort of thing. On the easy to teach side, I would say so-so. The fiddly part is true, which is true for all of these, is the fact that the bad symbol in each of the games here is ultimately very annoying. And in this one, that's no exception. You are having to pass a sheet in, having someone else write in the bad thing, give it back to you. If that comes up a lot, it can be very annoying. Now, I will say for this one, you do have a limited number of times that the bad thing can happen. And so, for example, in this one, it is 5 times. Once you've rolled that skull 5 times, from then on, every time it comes up, you can ignore it. And I so wish that the other 2 games would have implemented something of that kind, because I think this one handles the bad stuff the best out of all 3. Yes, it's still annoying to throw in the sheet and grab someone else's and write the thing and throw it back. Slows down the game. It's just kind of artificial interaction. But at least it only happens 5 times. Whereas in some of the other games, I've had games where you get the bad thing 12 times. And that's just so draining. Past the first 4 or so, everyone's just groaning. Oh, here we go. Another bad thing for me to have to deal with and eliminate. And it's negative reinforcement of what should be a fun mechanism if it happens once in a while. So stopping at it 5 times is a great idea. I'm very happy that this one does that. I'm just sad that the others don't. Everything else is fairly easy to understand, again, except for the coordinate sort of vibe. Tactics and strategy. Is it lucky, too lucky? Is it balanced? Is it interesting the whole time? I think that this one is just as lucky as the other one, so I don't have a problem with that. I do think the board feels a little tighter and forces you to go specifically to, adjacent to where you've already been, so that can be punishing, and it can certainly be frustrating to not have the number you need come up when you need it to come up. So that can compound the luck issue a little bit. The ships, however, on the outside of the island can certainly alleviate that problem quite a bit, but there's just a lot of luck. They might not come up. This is true for all of these games. You might have the bad thing come up a billion times. You might have, a great game where penny papers keeps coming up and you can write any number you like. So they're extremely swingy. Everybody gets the same amount of luck. That's fine, but it can still be problematic and feel like the game is turning on you. So, overall, this is my second favorite of the set. This is the one in the middle for me. I think, thematically, as I said, it is the most interesting. I like the idea of finding buried treasure. I like that the skulls, the bad thing in this one, caps out. And if the game was a little bit simpler to grasp, if the putting the little circles on the board and finding your treasure and all of that was a little more intuitive maybe, was a little more forgiving maybe, then I think this could easily be my favorite one. As it is now, the luck is going to be pretty punishing, as in the other ones, and it's not one that I feel as readily confident in teaching to a complete non-gamer right off the bat. I'd probably start with one of the other ones, the easier one of the 3, in fact. So there you go. This whole series for me, I find to be cute, ultimately, kind of clever, largely derivative. This one probably being maybe the least derivative with that idea of, a cross section being where the treasure is. That's sort of the least derivative of all 3. But still, nothing I would say is a revolution in roll and write games. So there you go, my second favorite out of all 3, that is Skull Island. Thanks for checking this out with me. I will see you on the next one.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com.